Loud.
Hi,
Okay.
I make a motion that we begin this meeting with a quorum. At this time, this is Patricia Colville.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:38 p.m. This is the Community Board 9 Landmarks Preservation and Parks Committee meeting. We are recording. Is there there's the agenda. Everyone should see the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes, any additional changes, I should say, to the agenda? Because I did receive some late changes to the agenda and I updated what I received. So are there any other updates to the agenda at this time? Any additions? We may change the order a bit. Is there anyone who is listed in the Parks and Announcements and Updates section that may need to leave early this evening so that I can put you on first?
Hi, it's Mark Vaccaro. I have another Zoom because I wasn't planning on this one.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, so then I am going to, we're going to start then with you, Mark. Okay,
Okay, so can I make a motion to adopt the agenda and minutes as presented or amended?
yes, and is there a second?
Second, Dan Cohen.
Okay, thank you, Dan. So then we'll go right ahead and we'll start with the announcements and the updates, and we will start then with Mark. Go ahead, Mark, with your updates.
Okay.
Mark, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, let me find my notes. First, the construction updates. Morningside's Pass have been completed and opened on the south of 114th Street section. The path has construction is now started at the northern end of the park from 120 to 122nd along the lower path. It's expected to take about a month. We're hoping this is a good contractor, so if it doesn't rain too much, it should be on schedule. The extra rain is a little unexpected. The Jacob Schiff seating area to be completed this summer. The Sheltering Arms Park House expected to be completed late summer, fall. And not in my notes, but the Sheltering Arm pool deck, I believe, is also going to be going under construction in the fall. I'll have to double check with that, and Matt can let you know on the next call. Playground 123 MPPA construction by School Construction Authority is expected to be completed 23-24 school year. St. Nicholas Park State of Good Repair path work north of 135th is projected to start this fall. That's the section, that's the lower path at 135th that heads north in sort of like the middle lower section of the park. If people understand what I'm saying there.
Mhm.
Okay. The other thing is movie nights. Friday the 5th, that's this night. That's not this Friday. Jacob Schiff Playground. It's Mona. Saturday, May 6th. James Baldwin Lawn at St. Nick's. Unfortunately, I don't know what one that movie is. I can't. Well,
No problem. Matt may have sent us a brochure about that.
okay. So I mean, that's the basic stuff. I am definitely open to questions, and if I can answer them, I will.
I have a question, Mark, if I may.
Go ahead.
This is Patricia Colville. First of all, thank you for your report. That was great and quite comprehensive and all encompassing, except for one little corner of Harlem. That is
So what 1,000-acre park are you interested in?
not the 1,000, just the little teeny Donelson Park right there.
And what about Donlin? What's your question?
I first of all want to thank you. I don't know if are you the person that can be held responsible for all the beautification that's being done in there as to date?
So I actually should have started this with an introduction. Robert McLean was the regional manager for fundamentally the west side of Manhattan. The borough of Manhattan, we've had some changes go around with regional managers and managers like Matt. So I am the new regional manager for not just District 7 and 9, but I do 4 and 5. So I am roughly the person in charge from 14th Street to 155th Street along the west side, but not Riverside or Harlem Piers or obviously Riverbank because it's state.
Oh, good. So then you get my question.
Yes.
I've
only been here a week, Pat, so.
Okay, so this is still my request stands, and I know it's an old business, Heather, but I'd like to state it now. I have requested that I understand that the Department of Parks will be responsible for planting the 1 million trees in New York City. And we have requested since last October, November, that 1 pine tree be planted in Donelson Park. I sent pictures and I would like to forward those pictures to you, but do you think that we could possibly get that one request granted, that an evergreen tree be placed in that park at the top?
Couple of
that
things.
it's
I'll have to go look at Donlin. And for folks that don't know, Brad Taylor is probably the only one who remembers, but back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I was the Matt for this district like 15, 16 years ago.
Okay. So, you know
So
what I'm saying.
I've just been looking. I have a lot of parks that I have Union, Madison, Bryant, St. Nicholas, Morningside. So I have a lot of high visibility properties, including the Broadway malls that I've been trying to see. I will take a look at Donlin. As a general rule, and this is just a general rule, it's not a yes or no. As a general rule, the Million Trees people will, if we make a request, they will send somebody out to look at it for their seasonal plantings. So they only plant twice a year, and depends on the species that's been chosen, what time of year and when the money comes, what time of year that will happen. I mean, Million Trees has been rolled into several other programs. That's sort of part one. So I have to go look and see, can we actually plant a tree here? Because you don't see it so much up in Harlem and in Chelsea. In Chelsea, you see it more, and farther downtown you see it a lot. There is a lot of restrictions now on trees. Mostly that it doesn't affect parkland much, i.e. like St. Nick's, Morningside, but it affects street trees in smaller areas. Trees cannot be planted within 10 feet on each side of a power line, Con Ed power, a gas line, a water line, a sewer line, or a hollow sidewalk. So the constant complaints I had when I was on the east side is, my tree died and you won't give me one. Well, I can't, because there's a gas line within 4 feet of that tree pit. So I'll go look at Donlin, see if it's possible. And see if it's anything obvious about that. The second part about that is since we buy trees in substantial numbers, we usually don't buy evergreens. It does happen, but it would end up having to be a special request. So with those 3 caveats, it's possible to plant there. We can possibly get an evergreen instead of a deciduous tree. I will go look.
Well, then you have formally received the special request for an evergreen in Donald Park.
Okay,
And I really would appreciate it if you could include, or if either Heather or myself can you can give me some information that we might discuss this, or I can get some feedback before the month is out.
yes, so I will, let me go back. I will put in the chat
Great.
my email.
Great.
And then I carry a Parks work phone with me that I check my email all the time, maybe not immediately because I'm not sitting at a desk. So it's good to email me. If you do, just remind me who you are and what you're emailing me about in the subject line if possible.
Yes.
Because I have 4 community boards that I'm dealing with, so I get a lot of emails.
I will definitely include that I am a community board 9 member of Parks and what is this called? Parks and Recreation, is that correct?
Yes.
And I really appreciate your help with this.
Okay. So I think I don't know if you can see the chat, but I think it went in.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other questions then for Mark before he has to leave, and then we can move the agenda along? Does anyone else have any questions for New York City Parks?
Cherry
Okay.
blossoms, cherry blossom or magnolia trees, please. Thank you.
I'm a very big fan of magnolias and a pretty big fan of cherries, and a bigger fan of red buds for understory deck ornamental trees. So, but for most of the trees being planted with the million trees and with street trees, most of them are canopy trees, which would not include any of the 3 trees I just mentioned. But that doesn't mean Parks doesn't plant them, or that, money could be arranged to get money for trees, because that's been done a fair amount in Morningside Park. I got $20,000 back in the day to have a giant sequoia sent across the country in a refrigerated truck.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you so much for being here. And we welcome you back into our community board district.
It's nice being here. Morningside has always been one of my favorite parks, and I've had many a discussion with people from Brooklyn at what's the second best park that our friend designed. And I'm not going to say which one was my choice, but you can take a guess. Okay. Have a good night, folks.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'm glad to be relegated to the time of the dinosaurs with you.
Oh, Brad, you were, I think, weren't you in junior high at that point?
Bless your heart.
With that being said, then Brad, we'll go ahead then with the friends then of Morningside Park. And then I don't know, Adrian, are you on for Friends of St. Nicholas Park? If not,
yes.
Okay, good. So we'll do the friends, and then we'll hit the Riverside Parks. Okay, go ahead, Brad, with any updates.
Oh, thank you, Heather. Things are going swimmingly, as Mark reported. We have new paving in the south end of the park. So if you haven't been down there, it just opened up today for the first time. It looks fabulous. We've got lots of events planned over the summer, including a couple of art installations, which I think you'll hear about next month. But we've got a huge number of volunteer groups coming into the park, which is just fabulous. So there's a lot of work to be done. This is the season when the weeds are just out of control. So thank goodness for volunteers, because as we know in this committee, Parks Department really does not get the funding it deserves. So 1% for parks, but that's really all I have to say. So thanks, Heather.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then go ahead, Adrian.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So it's great to hear that we're going to have that construction started in the fall. That's awesome news. And I guess I'll get right into it. So we had a Easter egg hunt and an Earth Day, which was a great turnout. We have our May cleanup coming up on Saturday, May 20th for It's My Park Day. And we had the youth gardening program with Morningside Park. I believe we're starting our program or our part of the program in June. And we also have the high school math and science Tuesday volunteer group up and running again, where they clean up the park. And in addition, lastly, to weeds, we started a Saturday weed garden group to tackle our issues at the park. So we're really happy about that. And that's it.
Okay, sounds good. And thank you so much for substituting in for Karen.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. Did you sign into the chat with your just?
You know, I'm on the phone.
Oh, no problem. So again, anyone who's joined us, if you could please sign into the chat, that would be greatly appreciated, and also include your affiliation. So we will keep the agenda moving
Well, before
forward.
you go on, Heather, is that the person that is in charge, who is sitting in for Leslie Wright?
No, Leslie Wright is here. She's going to
great.
be coming up shortly.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Thank
so
you.
is anyone here then from Riverside Park? Wesley Hamilton, are you on? I think I saw you on earlier, Wesley. Are you available?
Yes, hello. Can
Oh,
you,
good.
let me see, is my camera working here? Let me see if for some reason I can't turn my camera on. Let's try it.
Okay.
But okay, can you hear me okay?
No, I can hear you just fine. Yeah,
Okay,
the camera is not necessary.
I was trying to get it. It was working earlier. I apologize. And I'm sorry, I really don't have a lot with updates, but I'm here if anybody has any questions. Our crews are getting ready for summertime. We're breaking out our mowers and starting to mow. Unfortunately, this time of the year, all the grass comes up at one time until we can kind of get it tamed and get it on a pattern of being mowed, which we're doing. We've already, believe it or not, with this rainfall that we've had this last week, which has been plentiful, we've already mowed almost a third of the park, but it's popped back up so quick that in some places you can't even tell it was mowed this week. But that's what a lot of our crews are doing right now, just cleaning the park and trying to get it mowed. We're ready for summer. Our permits are increasing right now, and we're starting to get ready to do a lot. We're prepared to have a lot of events coming up this soon with the Riverside Conservancy. And we have Stephanie here, who I know I'd like to let her tell everyone about our events there. But before we move on, does anybody have any questions for me? Once, twice. Stephanie.
No questions for Riverside Park for Wesley. Anyone? Okay, then we'll have Stephanie, our Riverside Park Conservancy Outreach Coordinator.
Thank you so much, Heather, and thanks, Wes. Yeah, I also don't have as much updates except for the fact that it's very, very busy. We have over 282 free public programs in the park, which is really exciting. I'm actually going to drop that link when I'm done speaking, just in case you're ever in the area and want to do some free exercise classes or want to go to a concert or want to go to some children's programming. There's probably something happening that's free in the park, which is great. Free public programming from 59th Street all the way to 181st Street. So very excited to support that this year. We are still seeking applicants for our Teen Core program, which is a high school youth internship. It is a paid internship for youth, specifically in CB9 and specifically high schoolers in CB9 to focus on horticulture and environmental justice. It's my first summer here at the park and I get to lead the cohort. So I'm very nervous and very excited. So if you have any high schoolers, send them my way. And then we also have Sensational coming up on May 13th, which is next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. And that just means we are replacing all the sand in all the sandboxes all throughout the park because they definitely need to be replaced. So that's going to be a really fun activity, May 13th. And that's about it. So I'll put that free public programming and the Teen Corps actually in the chat as well. I think that's it.
How many students are you looking for? And what are the ages?
We are looking for 18 applicants. We are looking for 18 applicants from CB9 very specifically. And the ages are, you just have to be in high school or like a rising high school freshman. So like 13 to 18, if you're like in between your summer from, sorry about that, in between your summer from like high school to college, that's also fine too. Hopefully that made sense, but like 13 to 18 is what we're looking for.
Great. Okay. So then we'll go ahead with, let's say Mallory Craig, are you on?
Hi there. Yes. Hi. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay with my headphones in?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. I'm also going to keep it brief because while we do have, similar to Stephanie, lots of public programming going on, it's just kind of always on. So I'm going to reiterate what I always say and say that 5 days, now 6 days a week, we have public programming. The Greenhouse Education Center at Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park is open 7 days a week. And to come hang out in our greenhouse, in our learning garden, which we're planting up. And excitingly this Saturday, and I'm sure Leslie will tell you more about I Love My Parks as an organization that is so privileged to be at Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park. We're really excited to show up for I Love My Parks and be participating as well this Saturday. So we're going to be doing some planting and some stewarding of our park this Saturday at Denny Farrell. And you can sign up again, I think I'm probably alluding to what Leslie will share more about. And you can sign up for I Love My Parks through the website. And we would love to have you come steward with us. And we have some beautiful plantings going on. We installed a butterfly habitat that we would love to share knowledge about. So that's coming up this Saturday. And yes, I dropped 2 links with the list of our programs that happen each week, same time every week. So come through. We have some exciting special events coming up, like an art exhibition to celebrate all of our public programs. And we are also excited to be starting up an apprenticeship and with our Harlem Farm interns. We're still very much accepting field trips Wednesday through Friday morning. So if you have any schools, the CB9 schools in walking distance to the park should definitely reach out because we have funding for those students. So yes, you can find our QR code through the postcard that I just dropped in the link, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions about field trips, about public programs, greenhouse learning. Yeah, so come through the greenhouse sometime. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Any questions regarding the greenhouse at Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park? Okay, Leslie, you're up. Thank you so much for being patient this time.
Sure, it's the least I can do. Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. Good to be here. So yes, Riverbank, we are full blast warm weather season. As Mallory mentioned, Saturday, the first Saturday of May, every single year is the state's I Love My Park Day. And we do it in conjunction with Parks and Trails New York. They actually help us organize the day. So you can sign up on PTNY's website to volunteer at Denny Farrell Riverbank or any other state park across the whole state if you're moving around. Mother Nature's dealing us a very beautiful day on Saturday. So please go to ptny.org, use the drop-down menu on their I Love My Park Day and select your park. It's really important to sign up in advance only because they love to track the numbers and that helps us too. Of course, when you show up at Riverbank at 9 a.m. On the main stage to volunteer, you're welcome, whether you've signed up in advance or not. You'll get a t-shirt, you'll get supplies. We'll have several teams doing projects all around the park, including, as Mallory mentioned, over at the greenhouse. So that's Saturday, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning at Riverbank. The other thing to put on your calendar, and I shared this flyer earlier with the community board, I'll put it in the chat too, June 17th. You got to be at Riverbank. You just got to do it. It's our 30th birthday party. The flyer lists the different bands that'll be playing. We have some fantastic performances. We'll also have puppet shows. You know, everything will be open and thriving. Everything will be free. You can swim, you can skate, you can ride the merry-go-round for 8 hours if that's what floats your boat. It'll all be free and it's just going to be terrific, rain or shine. So that's June 17th at Denny Frail Riverbank. Skating rink is open for roller skating. The ice is gone, the roller skating is there. Just check the website for the schedule or flyers all around the park, or get the New York State Parks Explorer app, the Parks Explorer app. It's free. It gives you hours for every single one of our parks and programming and updates if things are offline or canceled due to weather, you know, whatever the to-the-minute update is. Moving to our different capital projects around the park, because we have a lot. The track and field project is ongoing. And in fact, we knew going into that project that we would have to resolve some drainage issues. Turns out there are more drainage issues, more complicated drainage issues than we anticipated. So that project timeline is extending. It will not be done by June. And I'm really sorry to say that, but we need to do it right. And we could have done a quicker fix, but then we'd still have some drainage problems and that would not really serve anybody well. So that project will be done at the end of the summer rather than the beginning of the summer. On the other hand, our locker room project in the athletics department is very much on track, and that will be done by June 1st. That contractor will be offsite. Then at the end of June, we'll gear up the big mother of all athletic, locker room renovations in the aquatics department. So that's gearing up. And we're intentionally starting that after our big birthday party on June 17th. So see you on June 17th, if not before. Happy if anybody has any questions.
Well, hi, this is Patricia Caldwell, and I've been waiting with bated breath to speak to you. First of all, I thank you so much for everything that's going on at Riverbank Park. And I recently, because I do enjoy that park and have for years,
Right.
I recently signed up for the athletic building. I work in the gym, work out in that gym. And basically, I find it a little difficult to have to go to the theater building to change my clothes because there are no bathrooms and there's no locker rooms. And I'm carrying my bag with me inside that, inside the athletic room where the Nautilus is. That's where I'm working out. So I'd like to know, because also there was a detour that meant I couldn't go straight through the what is that building that leads where they have the theater building, I believe it is, and straight into, so I had to walk all around in these stretchy little pants. And I'd like to maintain a little modesty, so to speak. So could you help me with that? Could you tell me why did I have to detour to go all around the building last week? And will that be fixed this week?
So what you're referring to is actually what I mentioned a few moments ago, the renovation of the athletics complex locker rooms and restrooms. And that project will be done by June.
Mhm,
So
yes.
we apologize for the inconvenience, but we didn't have any other way to do it, right?
Right.
So
I understand that.
yeah, so thank you for putting up with it. The end is near. But fair warning to all you swimmers out there, it is going to be a colossal pain in everybody's neck when we tear up the aquatics locker rooms. We're going to do our best to make it as easy on everybody as possible, but sometimes pain is what's necessary for the gain, right? We've all gone through different renovations at home or in the neighborhood, so we're going to do our best.
Well, Leslie, I understand the rest of the part about the locker rooms and everything being repaired. My question is, when I walk out of that theater building, there's a bathroom right there. So I go straight into the athletic building. So now when I get there, the door is locked and they're saying that I can't get in there. There are no locker rooms there. There are no bathrooms there. It's just one flight up to the room. I'm asking, why is that being locked? Why do I have to?
Oh, you're referring to the passageway between the two buildings and why you can't go
Yes.
outside. I see. I beg your pardon. I misunderstood. That you remember last week when we had the extraordinary volume of rain for a number of days straight?
Right.
That rain exacerbated a problem that we have at the park. And some of the facade suffered extraordinary water damage.
Right.
And we had a condition that led to safety concerns on the facade overhead between those two buildings and that short walkway.
Right.
So out of concern for safety, until we could resolve the issue, we did have to close that off to pedestrian passage, whether it's patrons or staff. So
Right.
sorry, I didn't understand that from.
So will that be resolved anytime soon, or
We're working on it, absolutely, because I understand that's a very convenient passageway.
it's as convenient as we can get at this time? But thank you.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you so much, Leslie. Any other questions for Leslie Wright at Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park?
I have a question, if I may ask.
Go ahead, Pasha.
Hi, I have a question about the entrance at 138th Street. The entrance compared to the 145th Street is like the ugly duckling, and it has that long pipe that's like looking really dilapidated and it's lined with the police barricades. Is there any plan on sprucing up the 138th Street entrance to Riverbank?
I hear you loud and clear. Yes, there is. It's very much on our list. We've got a pretty robust list of things that need to be renovated, refreshed, fixed at the park. And 138th entrance is definitely one of them. The overall treatment and make it look much more welcoming and fresh and renewed. The water pipe that you're referring to is actually the potable water into the park from the street, because it's a bridge. It comes over, and it originally was under the bridge when the park was built. I forget how many years after the park was built, a handful, there was some problem and the pipe ruptured, causing a flood, and it was very hard for the engineers to get to the pipe to fix it. So they realized that was a flawed design, that it actually needed to be much more accessible. It was put on top of the bridge. And you're absolutely right, the way that it looks is far from ideal. So it's on our list. We do not have a date or frankly a year when we will get to it, but I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Thanks. And
Thank you
by
for
the
your
way,
patience.
yeah, and thank you for replacing all the light globes that were so long dark at that same entrance. There was like, I think 5 big globes of light, and many of them had been dark for quite a long time. So thank you for having them all fixed. They look really beautiful at night now.
Oh, good. Absolutely. And please never hesitate to to write to me. I'll put my email in the chat with any concerns about the park.
Thank you so much. We're on track here. We're going to start the presentations, and I ask the presenters for the evening to clearly state what you are requesting from the community board in your opening remarks. Wendy, do you need to, will you have a presentation? Will you need to share the screen?
I will need to share the screen.
Okay, you should
That's great.
you should have access. Go ahead. and
Okay,
share your screen.
wonderful, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Let me start with saying my name is Wendy Hilliard, and I run the Wendy Hilliard Gymnastics Foundation. I had a conversation with Leslie a few weeks ago, and it was very helpful. But I'm coming here to talk about indoors. I know everyone's talking about outdoors and parks, but I've been running my Gymnastics Foundation for over 25 years. We were actually at Riverbank for about 10 years, from 2008 until 2018. And we had our Saturday community classes in the theater. We would bring out the equipment and kind of move it off to the side, which was fine for then, but as you may know, gymnastics is getting more and more popular. And after all of this time, the demand for our classes has really expanded, because what we do as a gymnastics foundation is we provide free and low cost gymnastics programs. Gymnastics is just an expensive sport. The main expense actually is kind of the space, right? Especially in Manhattan or anywhere in New York City. But what we've done is we have partnerships. We had a long partnership with Riverbank. We're currently in a partnership with Harlem Children's Zone at the Harlem Armory, where we do the majority of our programs there. But what I see as a legacy that we really need to find out is, after all these years, we have great programs, we have great teachers, and we have great students and a high demand. But what we do need is a dedicated gymnastics space. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time so that everyone understands what a dedicated gymnastics space is. Long gone are the times when you could have a gymnastics program and bring out the bars or bring out the beams. The sport has just progressed much further. To be safe, you have to have really great equipment, really great mats. And the one thing that a dedicated gymnastics center can do is it can serve all ages pretty much 7 days a week. We start our classes for our Mommy and Me classes or Parent and Me classes at 18 months, where a parent is with the child. Then when the children get to be about 3 years old, they can come in for their classes, about 45 minutes. We go all the way to adults, all the way to seniors. I did a really great program out of Brooklyn, the Aviator, a really robust senior program, which was very successful. They came to gymnastics in the middle of the day, 3 times a week. But the thing about gymnastics is that it's a great foundational sport. It's excellent, especially for girls, I will have to say. So we serve about 90% girls in our programs. We do have boys. We take them all to the high level. But for girls, especially during this time, gymnastics is very special. It's a great foundational sport. It creates confidence, and it's extremely popular. Especially for girls of color, we're having a moment between Gabby Douglas, which over 10 years ago won the first Olympic gold medal, and Simone Biles, who is the best gymnast that we've had pretty much in this country, who's probably going to be competing next year. Lori Hernandez, who's actually from New Jersey and now living in Brooklyn. So there are a lot of examples of athletes on the high level, but the reality of the sport is that it's usually out in the suburbs, and it costs a lot and requires a lot from the family. What I want to let you all know about really what a dedicated gymnastics center is, I tell people, think of it like a swimming pool. When you build a dedicated gymnastics center, you can only do gymnastics. When you build a pool, you can only swim. You do a dedicated gymnastics. And that's how most athletes in the country work out. There are different disciplines, I will tell you. As I'm sharing this, we're talking about looking at no, not the guide. Here we go. The guide to gymnastics. So we are part of USA Gymnastics. These are what they call the disciplines of the sport. The next discipline would be, we have artistic gymnastics. When we talk about artistic gymnastics, These are little ones doing gymnastics, which is really great. Artistic gymnastics, there's Simone Biles. So that's the bars and the beam and the floor exercise, the most popular part of gymnastics. You do have boys gymnastics or men's artistic gymnastics, which is 6 events and requires the vault and a lot of strength. That's men's gymnastics. We have tumbling and trampoline, which actually the Wendy Hilliard Foundation is doing really great in. We sent last year from Harlem, Zaquay Carter, went to the World Championships in Sofia, Bulgaria, and he placed 7th in his age group. And he learned all of his gymnastics starting when he was probably about 10 years old, or maybe a little bit younger. BJ Mensah, very close to me, he went to the World Championships in Azerbaijan, Baku, Azerbaijan in 2021. We did have a rhythmic gymnast, Alexis Page, who's from Harlem, who's on the national team for years. And it's about flipping, it's about doing the trampoline, which is an Olympic sport, tumbling, double mini. This sport is rhythmic gymnastics, which is actually my sport. I didn't mention. So I competed. I was the first Black to compete for the United States in rhythmic gymnastics many moons ago. And I competed on 3 world championship teams. I coach an Olympic athlete. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I have a long career in gymnastics. I then went on to become president of the Women's Sports Foundation, and I worked on the Olympic bid when New York was trying for the Olympics. I was director of sports. So I have a big commitment to youth sports and sports along the way. But rhythmic gymnastics is another sport that we do. There's acrobatics, which is a lot of hand balancing, and then general gymnastics, which is very popular for just showcase gymnastics. So I want to really show you a little bit, I'm going to be really quickly, about what we do at the Wendy Hilliard Foundation, and just to get a sense of what gymnastics looks like and what our gymnastics looks like.
Even though there's no sound, I don't hear any sound associated with the video. That's fine.
Okay. It's probably because I have my headphones on, but that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
But if you could just please let us know what you're asking from us, from the board, and anything that you're also asking from Leslie Wright.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, I spoke to Leslie, and I think the most part is to let people understand what gymnastics is and what we need, because I've done the research. Our foundation is unique in the country that we kind of call ourselves an HBCU of gymnastics. It's very rare to have gymnastics in urban areas taught by coaches that look like those that we serve. And so what my ask is for everybody to understand, as we're taking an outlook, it's hard. I was really kind of targeting Riverbank because I had been there and it's such a wonderful facility, but I understand that there are a lot of other needs that they have to do. But I want the committee, we've looked at other spaces, and gymnastics, especially in New York City, can be done in different places. We have studied it. There's only one really large one in Manhattan, which is Chelsea Piers. It's about 18,000 square feet. But in Brooklyn, there's Gotham Gymnastics, and I've done the studies. The difference is, to take a class with us, it costs about $30 an hour. To take a class in a private gymnastics class, it's $75 an hour. Our summer camp is $350 a week. And if you go to another, it's about $850 a week. So the key that I'm trying to let everybody know is I really want to have people think about having a publicly funded dedicated gymnastics center so that we can keep serving. We've served 25,000 kids here in New York. and our elite gymnasts are not able to stay. We actually, one of our alumni is going to Fisk University next year. She started with us, but then had to go to Brooklyn to do higher level training in a bigger gym, but she's moving on. So what I really want the committee to be aware of is the need, especially for girls, because as much as we talk about a lot of the programming, and being a former president of the Women's Sports Foundation, I know what the statistics are, and when kids go out and the opportunities that girls, especially now with all of these issues, mental health, which is very important, that we start considering looking at different spaces for gymnastics. I've done the research. There are very few public spaces around the country. There are a couple in Maryland, PG County, but the Chicago Park District in Illinois has 10 public gymnastics gyms. There's a couple in Peoria, Illinois, but you can get this sense that we can do it in New York. So I just want to let folks know that we're here, we're doing gymnastics, we have a great legacy. I've opened up, I opened up Aviator Parks and Recreation, Aviator Gymnastics out in Brooklyn, and it has been going since 2006. And what I just want everyone to know is that we're here doing gymnastics, we're serving the community. It's very needed for our young people. And I just want to make people think that we need to have a dedicated, just as important as swimming is, a dedicated gymnastics center, a legacy for our young people moving forward.
Leslie, is there any space at Riverbank State Park for what's being asked, a dedicated gymnastics center?
So Wendy and I talked all about this. We'd have to displace other things to do that. And there's so much demand for all the different activities at the park. We talked about, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but we talked about under the park. It's not part of Riverbank, but there is a space that at one point a few years back was slated to be a second soccer field. The New York City Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, has jurisdiction over the property, and FC Harlem, that has one soccer field adjacent to the parking lot under Riverbank, was looking to expand, and they had a deal, I believe, with DEP, but whatever happened, including the pandemic, that just hasn't materialized yet. So the short answer, Heather, is there's no physical space at Riverbank to have a dedicated gymnastics center. We'd have to build a new building, and there's no room to build that. We're always open, and Wendy and I talked about this, to add individual programs, but she's after some of you have to set up, breakdown over and over again. So I'm sorry, we need more land and we don't have it.
That's the problem of Manhattan.
That's the problem, period. Yes.
Okay.
Heather, as this is Patricia Caldwell again. Hi, as a person who remembers the fact that when we initiated the building of that state park in Harlem, the whole idea was to actually supply or afford services that we otherwise were not getting. Gymnastics was a part of that. And over at Riverbank Park, which hails itself as an Olympic grade athletic facility, I find it difficult that you can't fit an hour here and there in each facility, like an hour for swimming or an hour for gymnast for whatever. There's a full Nautilus in there. This is the reason why I use it, because I at one time was a dancer or did dance, and therefore I'm wondering how somehow maybe in the near future this can be rescheduled in such a way that the participants of that Harlem who implemented the building of this Riverbank Park can somehow get the use of the facility. And I'm directing that to Leslie Wright.
Thank you, Patricia. So again, we'd welcome additional gymnastics programming in the park. We do offer some. And Wendy and I talked about having her foundation program come back, but they want a space that they can and Wendy, I don't want to speak for you, but the ask was to have a place within the park that is only and always just for gymnastics, so that the extensive equipment can stay set up. And that's the piece that we don't have. I mean, we could certainly do more programming, but it'd be setting up, breaking down over and over again. So it's that complication.
Okay, Wendy, I'm sorry, but we have constraints, and unless there are other, I don't know if you've looked at other parks in the area, other
Hi, Heather.
state
It's
or
Shannon. I have my
city-owned
hands up.
facilities. I see your hand, Shannon. Just let me finish. I don't know if you've, explored that further.
Well, we're
You-
always on the outlook, and Leslie was very helpful, and we're talking with the city, and we're trying to figure this out. I know that it's a long-term project, but I just think it's kind of our time. I think this is the time when the Williams sisters came up, there was a lot more interest in tennis, and we're kind of at that time with Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas and Jordan and Lori Hernandez at gymnastics. So it's a long-term thought.
Yeah, I don't think
to
that
do
it's a
this.
lack of interest. I think there's a lot of interest. It's just space, and we are always under space constraints. Go ahead, Shannon, with your question.
Thanks, Heather. My apologies for my impatience. And shall we not ignore my girl, Dominique Dawes? With that said, one quick thought, and that is the fairway space under Riverside Drive along 12th Avenue. Now, the only reason why I mention it is because I've had the pleasure of attending these Community Board 9 meetings for a number of years now, and I do remember when Fairway vacated that space. I also remember that was around prior to the COVID pandemic. That space has remained vacant, and they have 2 buildings, the primary building, and then there's a second building on another lot. It is my understanding, it is rumor, it would need to be confirmed that that property changed the number of hands and now may be in the possession of Columbia University. Again, please take that with a very thin grain of salt. But it may be worth working with Community Board 9 to do an inventory of vacant properties within the district. But Fairway, that space came to mind because I find it to be a really shame that such a wonderful space with such adequate parking, there's also a deficiency in our city. Has been unused in this community for so long, and the individuals that work there were also displaced. So simply, I encourage you to take a look at that space and see if maybe that's an option.
Excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Correct me, Lofton, are you still on? I correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that that fairway space is owned now by Columbia University.
It is.
Hi, Heather. Yes, it is. My understanding, and I can't speak with a whole lot of authority here, is that our hope is to return a supermarket to the space at some point in the near future.
Thank you so much for those for that answer, for those comments.
I understand, I'm sorry, my hand isn't raised, but I understand that according to the Columbia University agreement that we have some leeway with that property, and if it has not been implemented or ready to start the building of another supermarket, that possibly that is Wendy, that is something worth investigating, and you should check the Columbia agreement for the west side, north and west side of Harlem.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you
And the
so much.
community board does have leeway in that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Daria, I see your hand. Go ahead, Daria.
Just really quickly, I just want to piggyback off what Ms. Caldwell just said. It's actually the community benefits agreement, so you'll know what you're looking for. And there is a copy on our website, cb9m.org.
Thank you, Daria. We've reviewed the community benefits agreement with this committee as well as with Lofton Flowers.
I'm just talking about while
For others who may not be aware.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of looking for space, that there may be some provisions.
Yes.
She might.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so let's, thank you so much, Wendy, for that presentation and providing us with that information. It's very much needed, and we would welcome your organization and our community board, and please let us know of any ways that we may be of assistance to you. Okay,
will.
and just
Thank you so
continue to
much.
work. Yeah, continue to work with us, continue to attend our meetings. We want to know what your when you're having programming and how we might be able to participate. Okay.
Thank you, I will. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been nice to be here.
Okay, thank you. Daria, is that a legacy hand? You want to lower the hand if you can? At this point, we're going to go ahead and move the agenda forward. Thank you, 611 West 112 for being so patient. Oh, Emma, I see you now.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, I didn't see you earlier. I just saw, okay, but thank you, Columbia University for being on and for being so patient. And many, many thanks for returning and providing the updates to the drawings to the presentation that you previously provided us at our April 5th meeting. I have a few asks. I know that we have quite an, oh, and I see Phoebe too. Thank you, Phoebe, for being here this evening. A few asks. If, Emma, while you're going through your presentation, if you could please utilize the cursor or the pointer. So as you're speaking, you're actually pointing out for the people on the Zoom call what you're speaking about. I think that would be very helpful.
Yep.
Let's see, that's, is there any, oh, so we'll go through your presentation, and then after it's complete, then I will ask for questions. Okay, I'm going to start with questions from the community first.
Okay.
So, and please raise your hand after we hear the questions from the community. And I ask that first we deal with questions that are specifically related to the presentation. Okay, because I want to make sure that all the questions regarding the presentation and everyone understands what is being proposed. And then after that, I'll ask for questions from the community board, and then I'll go back to the community and ask for additional questions. And then we'll make sure that we'll get as many questions answered as possible, but we just want to make sure that we're having an efficient process here. And I'll ask for not more than 5 hands be raised at a time. Okay, so that I can kind of keep track and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate. So Emma Leonard, if you can go ahead and share your screen, that would be great.
Yep, I'm going to share my screen, and in the meantime, Denise Ferris from Columbia is going to just give a little introduction to the project.
Oh, great! I didn't see Denise, and then if you could put your information in the chat, I'm not aware. Oh, there you are, Denise. Okay, all right. If you could put your information in the chat, just so that I can make sure that I recognize you appropriately, and including your position, that would be great. But go ahead.
Thank you. I did that. And for everybody who didn't see the presentation last time, I'll just give a brief introduction. My name is Denise Ferris. I am an architect. I'm also an associate vice president for Columbia University Facilities and Operations. And we're here to talk about 611 West 112th Street. Columbia purchased this property in February of last year. For those who are familiar with the neighborhood, this was last utilized as an SRO. But as we understand it, it's been abandoned for about 10 or 15 years. And because it was abandoned and neglected over the years, and there's considerable roof damage, which you'll see images of in Emma's presentation, and a lot of water infiltration, the building itself has structured, the interior of the building has suffered considerably, which gives Columbia an opportunity to really renew the building on the interior and to restore its architecturally significant features, which you will hear a lot more about in this presentation. It also, in keeping with Columbia's sustainability goals and in alignment with those of New York City's, this building will be an all-electric building, our first, and so essentially net zero carbon emissions in terms of our operations. Columbia does plan to use this building to house undergraduate students. And And this will allow us actually to empty some of our existing dorms and do necessary renovations in those buildings, as well as sustainability upgrades, just in the course of, again, in compliance with New York City and all of our united sustainability goals, I will say. In terms of construction, we're hoping to begin late this spring, early this summer, and our goal is to occupy with students for the fall semester of 2024. I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Lofton, who will discuss some opportunities for broader conversations beyond the specific issues that this landmarks presentation is focused upon.
Thanks, Denise. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Heather, and the committee for having us tonight and having us back for the presentation. As Denise said, just wanted to speak a little bit about our efforts to communicate with our neighbors and community about this project. Understandably, there's been a great deal of interest among the Morningside Heights and broader community about our plans for this site. And we've initiated a number of efforts that I think go above and beyond our normal with projects of this scale. We are always open to suggestions about how we can do this better and improve upon what we're doing. So I certainly invite those as well. But just to speak a little bit to what is currently underway and what has been underway for some time. Going back to over a year ago, after the university first purchased the building, we've been in direct conversations with a number of the neighboring buildings immediately around the property, letting them know about the acquisition, letting them know about the plans as they were taking shape. At that time, the planning for this project was really at a very, very basic stage. We were made aware of several issues related to the building in its current form, and we're able to address a number of those, I think, to the satisfaction of several neighbors on the block and on 112th Street. There were some lighting issues under the scaffolding. There was some congregation of some folks on the stairs that the neighbors had drawn to our attention, and so various sort of quality of life and safety issues that we were able to address early on in the weeks and months after the purchase. And so, we established, I think, some good relationships with neighboring buildings at that point, which we've been relying upon to keep communicating in the months since. I'm going to ask my colleague Phoebe to speak about that in a little bit more detail. But in addition to sort of our ongoing communications efforts with a an email list of neighbors that anybody can sign up to, in late February, the Morningside Heights Community Coalition invited us to attend a forum to present the plans for the project. I believe there were over 60 attendees at that meeting. I was there along with Phoebe and Carrie and others from the project team, and we presented an overview of the plans, heard a lot of feedback, certainly a lot of concerns from neighbors about a host of issues, including construction impacts, some questions and concerns about the use, and in particular the undergraduates who plan to inhabit that site ultimately. We are continue to hear those questions and concerns, and we'll continue to talk to and respond to our neighbors accordingly. To that end, we are planning another community information session, which I hope by the end of the week we'll be able to announce firmly. I think we're just waiting on a couple of details to confirm this, but we're looking at the week of May 15th, probably the evening of the 16th, around the same time at 6:30. We'll do another presentation to anyone who would like to attend a Zoom meeting, and we'll have representatives from the project team, from the construction management firm, from my office, from the Office of Facilities, et cetera, who will be able to respond to any and all questions at that point related to the project, related to construction impacts, related to the use of the site, et cetera. And in addition to that, in an ongoing, just as a sort of ongoing repository of information, of public information about the project, we've newly set up a website. The hyperlink is there. Happy to put it in the chat as well. which will sort of be a hub for all information about the project going forward with presentations and plans. And currently you can find the archive newsletters that we've been sending out on that site as well. And so would love for my colleague Phoebe Sade-Arnold to speak a little bit more specifically about our sort of regular project updates that we communicate via email. She is on the front lines of sending those out and receives a lot of feedback as well. So I think she would be able to add a little bit more color to those efforts as well. So thank you all.
Thanks, Lofton. I'll just jump in here. Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe. As Lofton said, I am the one who sends out those updates as they come into us from facilities. And I think the feedback has been pretty good so far in terms of the project that I've received. Lots of people, do express their appreciation for the project, and some do have concerns that we tend to respond to in a timely manner and address as soon as we have the information to. If anyone is interested in signing up for this list, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and you can also just email me directly. I'll put my email address in the chat. I'm more than happy to correspond with residents as issues or concerns come up, or to hear the good and the bad, and to relay those immediately to my colleagues in facilities. Thank you. I'll hand it back over to Denise now, I believe.
Thank you. And I think I'm just going to turn it over to Emma to begin the presentation, unless there are, I guess we'll wait to take questions. So please, Emma.
Yeah, great. I'm just going to jump back a second to the overall agenda. There we go. Thank you all. My name is Emma Leonard. I'm an architect at Beyer Blender Bell, the architect, the firm on this project. In this presentation, I'm going to give you a little historic context, which Denise touched on, a little bit more idea of existing conditions, and then go into three sort of specific topics about some window replacement, a new entrance, and to provide an accessible entrance, and then the replacement of a historic feature of the building, the cornice. The primary purpose of this meeting is to get feedback on topics that will go before the LPC public hearing. So these are the three main pieces that LPC will be reviewing at that public hearing. The date for that is May 23rd, if anybody feels like they would like to participate in that as well.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes. All right. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just enunciate a little bit for me.
Okay.
Yeah, turn if you can turn up your volume a little more, Emma. We are having a little difficulty hearing you.
Okay, I will speak up then.
Oh, that's much better.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. So the last thing I said was that this is a run-up to the LPC hearing, which will focus on the specialty window replacement, the barrier-free entrance, which is a new accessible entrance, and the replacement of a main feature that you can see in the picture on the right that's missing the cornice at the top of the building. That public hearing with LPC is May 23rd, if anybody would like to participate in that as well. After review those three projects, I have some additional information that just gives you a little bit more about the project in general. So, as many of you are familiar with, this is the Morningside Heights Historic District. Our project is located in yellow there on West 112th Street. So we are within that historic district. Zooming in a little bit more, we're bound by Broadway and Riverside, again, highlighting in yellow. And even in this photo, you can see some of the deterioration that Denise hinted at. You can see there are holes in the roof just from lack of maintenance over the period that it wasn't occupied. These help sort of illustrate the closest context for the building. On the same side of 112th Street, there are similar scale apartment buildings. Directly across the street, we have the Bank Street School, as well as a taller apartment building. So it's sort of the neighborhood in terms of the scale and facility.
Again, please remember to use your cursor to point out.
This is a historic article about the building. As we approach any of these projects, we always look to the past to sort of research and find out as much as possible. This building was originally built in 1903, 1904 as middle-class housing, as much of this area of the Upper West Side was, along with the development of the subway line, the nearby subway line. The original building, as it stands today, is 6 stories. It has a facade of brick, limestone, and terracotta. Over time, as Denise mentioned, it was converted in the 40s to an SRO. Sort of throughout its history, there were additional alterations. The windows that you see here in the 40s tax lot photo were replaced with 1/1 aluminum windows. This cornice, as I mentioned on that earlier photo, has been removed. There's also a service door and other sort of deterioration to the front facade. So existing conditions, how things stand today. This is a view that many of you might be familiar with if you live nearby on 112th Street. Like I mentioned, at some point, the windows were replaced with 1/1 that don't match the historic conditions. The tripartite windows were replaced with equal size windows instead of what was there historically. Here's just a close-up showing how that cornice was removed. This gives you a flavor of what the front facade looks like under that sidewalk bridge. There's been paint and damage to the limestone. And this also is up on the roof. There are some of those holes that we saw in that overhead view. Just from the neglect, there's been a lot of water infiltration and damage to the interior. So for overall scope on the exterior of the building, our overall goal is to bring back the building to as close to the historic nature as we can while doing it responsibly. This includes a full window replacement. These will be aluminum clad windows and they will have the historic proportions and characteristics, including the diamond pattern that you might have noticed in the earlier photos. The tripartites and others will also be brought back. Additionally, like I've mentioned, our plan is to recreate the cornice, and there was also this raised parapet originally. So our plan is to recreate all of that. The full facade will get a restoration scope. This includes repointing of the brick, repair of all the damage to the limestone and to any terracotta that's been damaged over time. The paint would be removed and the limestone would be exposed. The front entrance is pretty dilapidated, as you might guess from the overall appearance of the building. So we'll be replacing that. And then the main change to the facade is this new barrier-free entrance. It is utilizing an existing areaway, which I'll get into more detail about in order to provide an accessible entrance into the building within sort of the confines of the existing structure. So like I said, there's sort of 3 main things that we're looking to get feedback on. The first one is the special window replacement. So while we're replacing all of the windows, the specialty ones are the primary concern for the LPC public hearing. And this is because of that diamond detail. This qualifies as a specialty window. And so they just want to take a closer look at our details to make sure that we are meeting their criteria for appropriateness. So again, as I noted previously, the current windows are 1/1, don't have that grille pattern. And what we are proposing is to put that back on all of the windows that originally had it in aluminum clad windows with the mutton pattern would be created using painted aluminum's divided light, a simulated divided light with spacer bar. There are a few windows that are visible on the west facade. The west facade is visible through a narrow alleyway on the adjacent property. So it's even though I'm showing the full west elevation here, it really is the first row of windows that is visible from the street view. Again, we're looking at the ones with the diamond pattern windows. These are a little bit different because they are on a lot line, which has rating requirements. So we will be doing these in a steel rated construction instead of the aluminum clad like the ones on the south facade. Otherwise, will look pretty similar. And again, just the existing conditions versus what we're proposing and details. So this is the specialty window on the south facade, the main public view. What is on the left is what we believe the original window size and proportions to be. What you can see in the red dashed lines on the right-hand side is those lines transposed over what we're proposing. So just due to the nature of current construction practices, it will be slightly less glass than what was there originally, but well within the typical criteria expected from LPC. These are details just showing how we came up with those lines. They will be double hung like the original windows would have been. And again, we really are trying to maintain as much of the historic profiles as possible. So matching the mutton profile with our simulated divided light and matching as closely to the original dimensions as possible. Similar for those rated windows that I mentioned, the difference here is because it's a steel construction, the details are slightly different, giving us a slightly different proportion. But again, we're well within what's expected within the LPC criteria. The details are slightly different because of the material change. The biggest difference is just the wider meeting rail, but otherwise they will be a double hung and have the look to match the historic windows. So moving on to the next topic is the barrier-free entrance. So as you might have noticed, the historic building is not accessible. There are steps leading up to a vestibule, and within that vestibule, there are a couple more steps. In order to be brought up to the current code, we need to provide an accessible entrance. We thought taking an advantage of this existing areaway would be a good location and disturb the facade as little as possible. So this is just an overall existing elevation showing this is the historic rail that exists. These are the windows, and this is the areaway. In our proposed design, we are keeping most of that historic existing rail. We are making a modification by creating an opening here and then placing our ramp entirely within that areaway. That ramp is a 1 to 20, so those familiar with code requirements, it's not a true ramp in the sense of needing handrails, which allows us to get away with just a very simple rail along the outer edge to provide an enclosure. And this provides a quieter appearance to that. And then just looking at the details of this a little bit more, the materials we're looking at are really meant to blend in with the existing conditions. So in order to create that new door, we're taking an existing window opening and extending it down to the level of the interior floor, and keeping the existing head of the windows aligned with our door opening. We would take inspiration from what we believe the original door looked like to create the paneling on this door. And excuse me. like I said, the historic rail would be maintained and refurbished, repainted. The new rail would be a similar materiality, painted metal handrail, but it would be a lot quieter and smaller than the existing rail. This just gives you an idea of the scale. We're tucking it within the existing width of the areaway. So that's what's sort of allowed, and the length, we're again taking up what is it within the areaway with appropriate landing space on either end. Zooming in a little bit more to that rail, like I said, it's sort of a quieter, simpler version of the existing rail, scaling down the circular details and some of the details at the posts to create a quiet rail to not impose. This is an image of the existing condition. And this is the rendering of the proposed. So you can see there's the modification of the existing where we need to create that one opening as well as the new door. And lastly, the cornice recreation. Based on historic photos and documentation from other buildings built around the same time and by the same architects, we've are proposing a design based on those. So the photos on the left show what we believe, what was there originally. Like I said, it has since been removed except for these small details, which we will be incorporating into the new cornice. So these are just a couple views. This is the elevation showing the new cornice and a 3D view, giving you a little bit closer up. Like I said, we're keeping those historic pieces and incorporating them into the design. This is just a section cutting through at 2 locations to highlight some of the proportions. This will be built out of a GFRC material, which is a composite concrete material, which is a lot more durable and easy to maintain, as well as lighter weight, which makes it easier to install. And I'd previously mentioned we're also building back that raised central parapet area. You can see that in this section. That'll be a cast stone with a CMU backup wall behind it. So those are the 3 main things that we are looking for the committee to weigh in on in a letter to LPC. And then this is just a little bit more information for the community and for the board about the project in general. So far I'd been highlighting just the south facade and a little bit about the west facade. This is an unrolled series of elevations. So you can see this is looking along that south facade, the west within the courtyard, and then the end of the west. Like I mentioned when we were talking about these windows, this is the alleyway that I was talking about. This is on an adjacent property, so we don't have control of the alleyway, but we are making sure that whatever is visible down that alleyway is meeting the appropriateness. So like I've discussed, these will be treated as if they're primary, and just these little bit beyond would be a secondary facade consideration. Continuing around the building, this is the north facade. It is much simpler. It was a fully brick facade with 1/1 windows historically. So we are going back with 1/1 windows, but we are still doing a full restoration of these facades. The one addition, the one sort of new looking material is for an elevator. There's an existing elevator that is very tiny. We need to make this meet current code with a stretcher elevator. And so we are expanding that, and that will have a metal clad, which is not visible from the street. In terms of the interior of the building, the cellar level is at the front is primarily back of house space. At the back of the building, adjacent to our narrow rear yard, there are a couple common spaces and then an apartment for faculty or staff. On the first floor and above, that's primarily where the students will be living. There's one small common room on each floor, and otherwise it is the student rooms and the shared bathrooms. So I'm showing the cellar, the first floor with the main entrance, and here's that ramp. And then typical floors, because floors 2 through 6 are repetitive as we go up. And then just a view of what's up on the roof. We are adding mechanical equipment on the roof. As Denise mentioned, this will be a fully electric building, which means we are going to be using a system of ERVs and fan coil units, which will require condensing units. Those will be surrounded by a sound bearing wall, and we're very aware of the acoustic issues. Additionally, since the roof will be replaced, local law 9294 is applicable, and we are looking at doing a green roof to meet those requirements. All of this equipment has been placed specifically away from those visible edges so that it will not impact the views from the street or any public way. So this is the front facade view looking straight up at that cornice. The cornice is pretty tall, so it will block sort of any direct views from along 112th Street. Looking down that alleyway, this corner is sort of the most visible, so we had moved things away from that corner as much as possible so they won't be visible. From looking down from Broadway, so this is number 4, if you're standing on Broadway looking down 112th Street, this is what that looks like. We're this building here, just beyond this sort of fence that's sticking up above the roof lines. Again, we've pushed most of the equipment back from that front facade, so it will not be visible. Similar from Riverside, over here, number 5 is where these views are looking at, standing on the corner of Riverside, both from the sidewalk vantage point and from the slightly higher park vantage point. Looking back, so it's a little hard to tell, but this is our building. This sort of step in the cornice is or in the parapet is our building. The reason that this is not hitting up at the corner but down is because taking into account like looking sort of over that corner, but you'll see again that the equipment has been pushed back so that it will not be visible from any public way. And that is my presentation, so I will open it up for Heather to run questions.
Great, excellent. Let's see. I do not see any questions. If you could please raise your hand for questions, please, because there are a number of people I know who have questions. I ask that we be respectful of each other and utilize the raise hand feature. If you're unable to use the raise hand feature, please put your question in the chat, and I will ask that committee members watch the chat for me to see if there are any questions. So just for fairness, I'm going to ask, someone just called my name.
Oh, it's Liz. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to do that for you. There is one question in the chat when you're ready for it.
Okay, let's see. So I'm going to ask first for if there is anyone on this call who is in close proximity to the building. I'm going to take questions from those individuals first. So if you live next door or within a couple of blocks, I'll go ahead with questions from those individuals. I'm going to start with, let's see, who do I see in the chat? Laura Friedman, go ahead with your question.
Well, hi, good evening. I'm Laura Friedman. I'm the president of the Morningside Heights Historic District Committee, and I am the next door neighbor at 400 Riverside Drive. And there are a number of us here this evening. From both the committee and from the neighborhood. I just want to start by saying that the facade improvements to the front look very, very nice. And we're very appreciative of the fact that it's going to look like a gorgeous building in the neighborhood, I think. However, there are a lot of concerns that we have. And I have a whole list, but I think other people might have a lot of questions as well. I want to start with the noise mitigation. I saw in the pictures that you do have sound barriers. Are those sound barriers similar to the ones that you have on 113th Street above the dormitory there, and next to it, next to the building that is next to the where's the other building that has some stuff on the roof? I can't remember. Was it, maybe it's the alumni building. So do you know what the noise mitigation that has been used on those are? And are they similar to what you're planning to use on the roof of this building?
I'm going to step in here. I'm going to say I'm not familiar with those buildings or the noise mitigation that has been used there. We can get back to you with that answer. Emma can speak to the current codes and the noise mitigation that we'll be meeting for this building.
Yeah, I'll note that we will be doing a sound study actually this weekend on site off of a roof of an adjacent one of the buildings that you mentioned, one of the Columbia buildings, to monitor the existing acoustic conditions so that we know sort of the baseline, and we will be meeting and exceeding the code requirements beyond that.
Just staying with the roof for 1 second. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll go to the noise mitigation on the street and on the building as work is being done on the building, both inside and outside. What kind of noise mitigation steps is Columbia planning to take?
Denise, do you want me to take this? I'm Carrie Rivera. I'm the director for the project for Columbia University. And these are the type of things that we really want to get into in our town hall meeting in May. Just short answer is that we'll be implementing some of the clean construction standards that we've been using up at the Manhattanville campus here. And we'll be able to share some of that that information with you at that town hall, things that we'll be putting into trade contracts to specifically address noise as well as dust and pest management.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that I saw just appear from somebody else in my building is, why do the mechanicals have to be on the roof? Why can't the mechanicals be in the basement?
It has to do with needing fresh air. And there's that is the best place for the equipment.
Another element too, by going carbon neutral, is that these are airside heat pumps. I'm sorry, this is Aaron Lamport from Bayer Blender Bell. I'm the project manager. And so you need to move air through the unit to get a temperature differential and get the appropriate cooling. So in a basement or cellar location, you cannot get, enough air to achieve that movement. And you will find this is going to become, frankly, a very common thing throughout New York City with the carbon elimination, meaning you cannot use a boiler in the basement anymore because you cannot have a boiler that is, gas or oil fired.
Just briefly on the ramp, we'd like to know why there's a need for a door on the side, as opposed to taking the ramp right into the main door.
Yeah, that's a great question. As I noted, the exterior entrance has an interior vestibule, which then has a couple steps up. And so unfortunately, that landing on the exterior isn't the same height as the first floor. And so we need to have a ramp that goes all the way up to the first floor elevation.
Can you show that for us, Emma, as a visual so that people understand what you're speaking about?
Yeah, let me go to the.
If you can show us the interior and then show us why you can't do that.
Fortunately, the plan's cut off a little bit, but there are a few steps here. So there, the steps on the exterior. And there are a few steps on the interior that we need to make up the difference. Additionally, with the historic columns, it would be hard to squeeze the ramp within the areaway and not have to do modifications to this historic entrance.
How much space is there on the sidewalk in case, for an example, you had to modify the front stairs to make room for the entrance right through the same door as everyone else?
I mean, we're up against the property line, so that would have to, it's just the width of the sidewalk.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Friedman, with your question.
Yeah, on the windows, will all the windows be double paned windows?
Yes.
Okay. Floor plans. What are the plans for the outdoor spaces? This is something of tremendous concern to all of us. So you have a side, you have courtyards, and particularly the rear, the usage of the rear yard and the rear facade. Are you putting in new doors?
Yes, we are putting in, we're closing a couple of doors and we are adding a couple of doors.
Mm-hmm. And where are the drawings for that?
This is the elevation.
Mm-hmm.
This is an existing door that is going away. This is an existing door that's going away. And we are turning a couple windows into doors.
And what is going to be outside?
It's a small sitting area for students.
What does that mean? A small sitting area?
I mean, the rear yard is quite small.
Couple of chairs?
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be plantings along the perimeter as well as a fence to create visual barriers and then a few tables and chairs.
Can you refer to a slide, Emma, that shows the actual building, the exterior rear yard, so you can point out the size of the rear yard in a visual?
Yeah, this is really the best I have. So this dashed line is the property line. This is that back facade that we were looking at in elevation. Those are the new doors.
What's the size of that space?
Aaron, do you happen to remember off the top of your head?
The back is a little under, I think, 13 feet in depth. And then the width is obviously the width of the lot, which is, I believe, 87.5 feet. But it is a fairly narrow space. So, any number of occupants out there will be quite limited just due to the lack of place, plus the fact that, as Emma mentioned, portions of it are going to be greenscaped or have plantings. So obviously,
can you just go back to one of the plans that shows where you kind of highlight in yellow what the building footprint looks like? I just want people to understand clearly what this area is. It's in one of your earlier slides.
Yep.
Yeah, if you can go back there so that people clearly understand what portion is your building. And I think you mentioned something about another building. We just need to understand the difference between the two and where the rear yard is in those slides. If you could take your cursor and show us what you're calling the rear yard area, because the way that you have that yellow line, it gives us the impression that the rear yard ends at the building. The yellow line really needs to show us what the entire space of the building of the property line.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So can you just with the
But yeah.
cursor just show us, does your property line go to that rear building that's behind it? I guess that's what the people are
No,
asking to see.
no.
Can you
So-
give us an
yeah.
estimate?
Yes, so this line, it's a little hard to tell because of course perspective is skewed, but it really
Yeah, I know.
is.
That's why I'm asking for a real life picture, because people need to be able to visualize.
Yeah, I'll talk about it here and then I can zoom into another plan that might be helpful. So our rear yard is lower than the rear yards of the buildings on West 113th Street, and there is a fence line that divides the two. I believe that's what this line is indicating. And so our space is really just between our building and that fence line. And then I also mentioned there appears to be space here that belongs to 400 Riverside, the adjacent building. And so here our property line is just the building. So along this line. So it extends along this line, sort of almost exactly where the yellow is, along the fence line. And then again, our property line is where our building abuts the adjacent building to the east. So our courtyard again is a different height actually than the light wall on the adjacent building. So there's a wall and a fence there. And our light wall is a different elevation height than the adjacent alley. And there'll be a wall and a fence there.
So
And
611 has two inner courtyards, and that foliage that's shown behind the building is not part of 611.
correct.
Now, Ms. Friedman, does that answer your question, or do you have another clarifying question?
I wanted to get clarification again on the usage, not of the back, but of the back facade. So you're going to be modifying that back facade in order to accommodate different doors, is that correct?
Yes.
But you have no pictures of those.
Not in this presentation, no. They are out of the public view, and so they are not applicable for LPC.
Okay. So that's not what
Emma, I'm just going to try to facilitate things a little. Is it possible for you to show the community any visuals of that, even though it's not in the purview of landmarks, just to make them more comfortable?
I think again, explaining on the facade, maybe enlarging that rear facade where the doors are.
Or can you explain to us why you have to close up some doors and move the doors to a different location?
And the plan might actually be a little bit better. So,
okay.
It has to do with the interior planning. There is an existing egress path that connects along this side of the building through this courtyard and out to the areaway. We are reconfiguring the egress as part of this project, and so we don't need that door anymore. Allowing us to use that space a little bit more efficiently for this apartment. And then opening up a door in a different location. This door is to exit the new egress stair to the backyard, and similarly, this is a new door based on the plan. There was a similar egress path that continued on this side through this courtyard, and again, we're reconfiguring the egress path, so we don't need that door anymore. And this just allows for a more efficient internal planning.
Okay, so all right, now I understand why the community was asking for the floor plans. Ms. Friedman, go ahead with your next question, and then do you just have only a couple of more questions? Because
No, you know what, I have a bunch, but I think that I should let other people ask questions besides myself. I just do have one question. On the common space in the cellar, that is the side of the building that it goes against 400, is that right?
Yes.
Goes to the west.
To the alleyway, correct? Yeah, to the
Right, right.
But to clarify, it goes to the property line, not to the building. You have an alleyway. I'm not sure the exact width. I believe it's about 10 feet between your building and this building. So there's no direct contact between your building's
Can
eastern
you show the
wall.
area way again?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Correct. So in fact, whatever is the distance between the two buildings at the street wall, you can see the distance at that area of a location is actually even further because your building steps back by the look of about 2 feet in the rear portion.
So my question is, is it possible to flip the, in the current design, you have an apartment, what is, I guess, a faculty apartment or a staff apartment of some kind, with that common room, and put that common room on the other side?
We can take it into consideration. We can look into it.
But I would also note that the wall between that space and the outdoor space in yours is on the order of 20 inches of masonry and stone. Plus, we will be adding, while historically there was, I think, just a furring on the wall, we will be adding insulation and a new drywall furring. So any sound transmittance through that wall will, be negligible. It is an extremely thick wall down there.
And just one question about that. There are no windows in that room? That room is completely without windows?
Facing the property, there will be zero
Whether
windows.
facing the property or facing the rear, or facing the courtyard? Are there no windows in that building, in that room?
No, it would not be legal to have no windows, and we do have windows.
Exactly. And so therefore, I have lived next door to this building for 45 years. Believe me, sound travels. So that's why we're asking you to switch that. There are windows, there are doors that will be open, and we would prefer it. This is the final configuration, which we hope it is not, that be switched. Okay, I'm gonna let other people speak, because while I do have other questions and comments, I don't want to be the only one speaking. So thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you for your answers.
Okay, let me go to the next person. Let's see where with the hand raised. Okay, I see Robert Stern. Ms. Friedman, if you could lower your hand.
Oh, yes, I will.
I'm going to go
Sorry.
to Robert Stern next. Go ahead, Mr. Stern.
Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm also with the Morningside Heights Historic District Committee. I have a couple of questions that weren't clear to me about terracotta and the overall safety of the facade. I'm assuming that you've all done an inspection so that it is compliant with any kind of local law 11 considerations. Is that correct?
Our firm has not specifically done a local law 11 inspection, but all of the work that we will do will be up to code.
Okay, because that was never mentioned here, and we know that the building has been shuttered for years, so I'm sure there's significant damage from water and everything in the terracotta. So we have your assurances that you'll be doing that type of inspection, and so that therefore it's very likely that more than the cornice will be replaced.
No, we have done an inspection, not specifically a local law 11 inspection, but we are doing an inspection as part of our work. And so far, the terracotta is in pretty good shape, and we are not planning on replacing very much.
Really? Okay. Well, that's surprising.
Yeah.
As far as the terracotta replacement, are you replacing with actual terracotta or are you fabricating it?
Both are a fabrication product, meaning terracotta is not a cut stone. So whether it is being done in kind as a new terracotta unit, or whether we're doing, patching with patching mortars and others in areas, both will be a fabrication process.
Can you show us on the drawings where it will be fabricated and where it will be
I just want to clarify, I'm aware the terracotta, I mean, you would recreate it. There are a couple of firms that do that.
Correct.
But there are other firms that also create out of other materials. You're saying you will actually use the firms that create the terracotta that will replace the original terracotta. Is that what you're saying?
No, I have
Oh.
not expressly said that. So the point will be on a case-by-case basis, depending on the natures of the repairs, we will be making a final determination of whether areas of replacement will be specifically a new fabricated terracotta product versus an alternate patching or repair method. But to Emma's point, what's actually been quite remarkable in the building when you see the deterioration of the roof in other areas is one would anticipate much greater damage to the terracotta and frankly the brickwork and on that front facade. By whatever miracle there may be, there's very little. We do know of one specific window header that had some rust jacking that did break the terracotta units. So there we are looking at a larger replacement. But there is actually a very remarkably low level of damage so far that we've been able to observe. When the building gets fully
Can you show the photograph of the current conditions and just point out for people on the Zoom call who don't understand what terracotta is?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this building has a limestone or natural stone base. That is what you're seeing at the ground level. So up as high as the entrance level, that is limestone. But then when you get above that into the red and off-white zone, it's the off-white is the terracotta blocks. And so that acts as a larger sort of foil or surround of the windows at the second floor. And then if you look at the photo just above that, you can see there are a few terracotta accents and some like medallion pieces. So those are the terracotta, the light tone areas versus obviously the red is the red brick of the building.
Go ahead, Mr. Stern, with your next question.
This is more in the form of a statement. As I agree with Laura Friedman, I think that the restoration is obviously going to be done in the correct way, and you will meet all the requirements, and I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job. We're very grateful that Columbia has taken on the task of restoring this building the way it ought to be. And obviously, it's certainly a much better situation than it's been all of these years. This is a question that obviously will be, though, for the town hall meeting, which is the use of the building, of course, which is taking housing stock again away from the neighborhood, deteriorated though it was. We would have liked to have seen some restoration of actual affordable housing in this building, perhaps shared with Columbia, perhaps shared with faculty or with office space. So Columbia, again, has taken housing stock out of the community, unfortunately, but we are grateful that the building is being restored in some way. And this is a topic, I guess, for the town hall meeting. Thanks very much.
Hey, Heather, can I follow up on that? Heather, are you still there? Well, I'm
sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Go ahead, Liz. Go ahead with a follow-up.
Just to follow up on Robert Stern's comment about use, to let everyone know here, including all of the neighbors, the Housing, Land Use and Zoning Subcommittee of Community Board 9, of which I am a co-chair. We've been presented with a resolution regarding the use of this building and the inclusion of affordable housing, not just in this building, but as we see in all buildings, whether they be at institutions like Columbia or throughout our community. So we are going to take up that resolution for discussion. Our meeting is next Tuesday. I think it's the 9th. at 6:30. And if you would like to register for that, I will grab that information out of our website and put it in the chat. But please come so we can discuss whether the community board should write a resolution talking about use as it relates to this particular project.
Okay, I thank you so much, Liz. I see another raised hand. Michelle, are you do you live in close proximity to this building? Michelle? Okay.
Muted.
Are there any other questions, or are there any other questions in the chat from community members?
I think Michelle's trying to talk, but she's muted.
You have to unmute yourself, Michelle, or can you
Kevin?
write your question in the
Okay,
chat?
can you hear me now? It's Kevin.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
okay, as a longtime resident of Riverside Drive, yeah, every window in our apartment faces the Maramonay. And my question is this. Once Columbia has negotiated easement rights with 400 Riverside Drive, in addition to replacing the windows, you will of course have to point the brickwork. My question is, when will this work start and how long do you expect it to last?
Again, this is what we'll be presenting construction schedules at that May 16th meeting when that gets scheduled. But we see that, I believe, and again, I really would rather have the construction manager be presenting their schedule as I put these dates out there, but it would be, I would say late summer through the winter, maybe into the spring. That maybe
Sooner
not
we know the better.
appropriate. I'm sorry?
Thank you. Thank you. The sooner we know, the better, but thank you.
Sure, of course. Thanks.
Okay. Were there any questions in the chat that we've missed? Again, committee members, I'm asking you to please check the chat for any questions. Does anyone else have a hand raised? Now I'm going to go to the committee members then, if there are no other members from the community.
I have my hand raised.
Oh, who is that?
That's Paul Snair.
Okay, go ahead, Paul. Sorry, I didn't see you. That's what I'm asking. Thank you so much.
I'm also a neighbor at 400 Riverside Drive. But I had a short comment about the use question and discussions with Columbia. And I don't know if it goes here or after the community board members talk. So I don't know if asking for some guidance here.
I'd like to discuss questions. I mean, if you have a quick question and you live right next door, I'm giving the people with close proximity priority.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it short. I'll keep it short.
Okay.
I mean, in the introduction, some of the representatives of Columbia mentioned they've heard concerns about the use of the property. What hasn't happened since those concerns have been raised is any discussion directly with anyone at Columbia who has decision-making authority as to that decision to have it used as an undergraduate dorm with about 160 people living there versus a graduate dorm with apartments or even a faculty dorm. So at some point, I hope representatives of Columbia who have authority to make such a discussion will engage with a neighbor, being us and others, about that issue. On the building, that block already has some dorms at 113th and Broadway and some of the brownstones on 113th. The corner building at 112th and Broadway also has a number, I think it's graduate students in that building. But there are several times a year when the students are happy and joyful and the noise comes down to the back alley all the way to 400, and I'm sure affects all the buildings that abut that rear alley. And so that would be why we'd like to have that type of discussion with people in authority who have the ability to make those decisions. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, if Paul and Michelle, I didn't, your name is listed as Michelle, if you could lower your hands.
Oh, okay. How do we do that?
Just click on, okay, now I'm going to go to committee members. Liz, do you have any questions as it relates to the facade, the cornice, the barrier entrance?
I do not. I think that the proposal for the restoration of the facade is sound. It restores the historic detailing. I think the ramp is fine. The cornice looks like a lot, but if that's what you're saying was there before, I believe you. And I think it'll look good. Thank you.
I do have one question. If we can go to the pictures with the windows. I noticed on the top floor, the center window section, we're going from, I think, 3 windows to 2.
Yes,
And if you could help us understand why the number of windows on that floor are changing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is a historic photo. I'm zooming into that top floor that you're talking about. So yeah, most of the windows are the tripartite, so the 3, but the center one they designed as a pair of windows to match the pair of windows above the door. So we're going back to match the configuration that was there originally.
Okay, all right, okay, because I guess I was looking at the original, I think the side by side of what's currently there.
Yeah,
Instead of
which
looking
is
at the
exactly,
original.
Exactly, which
Okay.
is 3. Yep.
Okay. And then my other question is in terms of the ramp, is that considered ADA accessible?
Yes.
All right, but I noticed that it's, for some reason I thought that it needed to have a 5-foot diameter, and this seems to be much smaller turning radius than that.
There's another type of turn called a T-turn. And so it'll allow that turn into the door. And then once you're inside, you also have the 5-foot turning radius.
Another point too to make is that we refer to it as a ramp because that's the easiest way to understand it. But as Emma pointed out, it is below a 1 in 20 slope. So actually, legally speaking, it is not a ramp. That is why we do not have like extensive handrails or other aids for coming up this sloped walkway, because it is actually quite gradual at 1 in 20. So it will make, frankly, an easier to access and more barrier-free experience, because legally you could do a 1 in 12, but the 1 in 12 then would be far more of an imposition on the facade, because you would require a lot more added elements to it to be compliant for that steeper pitch, which we're not doing, and trying to use the natural topography to make that an easier access point into the building.
And so the T-turn requires what radius? If you could just make that clear.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's just a T-turn is not a radius. It is a
Or
T
diameter.
shape.
Mhm.
Or diameter. It is a T shape. The idea is that if you picture yourself in a T in the, let's say, the right bar, you make a 90-degree turn into the leg of the T, and then you do a back moving turn into the left leg of the T. And that allows you to make a 180-degree revolution. It's very similar, frankly, to the space of a circle-based turn, but it works better when you're trying to make like a 90 turn off of a platform or going through another opening like the doorway, as Emma mentioned.
So the ramp, the width, I guess, is about a little over 3 feet wide. It's not
Correct.
like a standard area way, which is generally about 5 feet wide.
Correct. It's not that broad,
Okay.
because there was that other question of, oh, could you, expand outward from the building further to have more space? And the answer is, The sidewalks on 112th Street are fairly modest width sidewalks, and this areaway is also quite modest in its width. I think the ramp's probably more on the order of maybe a little over 3.5 feet wide.
Yes.
I think you may even have a dimension there. I can't quite read it.
Yes. I
Yes.
saw that, and then I see how you can't continue on. Is that an existing lamp post that would not allow you to continue on up on that porch and into the same front door that everyone else goes through? A little concern that I have is that the door to the right, it's the I guess in one picture it appears to be paneling above as opposed to, say, glass, and it just seems to kind of disrupt the symmetry of the entrance of the building because it doesn't align with the, on both sides of the entranceway, the number of windows are equal, and now you're taking out one of the windows to make it a door, and the door, doesn't seem to have any type of it's I don't know how to say it exactly, but I guess in terms of the windows are very specific. I guess if there were some characteristics that you could include from the window into that door might make it appear to the symmetry to be a little better. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hear.
Can you just explain, I guess, your thought behind why you chose the door entrance as it is?
Yeah, so the proposed door for the main entrance represents what was there originally. And so we, as a new door, we're sort of pulling from the language of that door. And so it would be a large glass panel within the door itself. The paneling up here starts to get smaller, but we could look at adding glass there as well. So yeah, it's more of the language of a door than of a window. So I hear what you're saying about symmetry.
Yeah, because it's sort of that door, that's why I was hoping, but when I asked for the dimensions, I can understand how it's, why you need to put the door there. I'm just wondering if there's anyone else on the call, who's even if you can add even part of the diamond pattern from the windows into that upper portion, I don't know, just to make it look more
of a window.
Symmetric.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if that's possible, or if anyone else has any other ideas about that.
And sorry, also just to clarify, Heather, so it's, I think, clear for everybody. When you're looking at the plan directly below, you see two circles that are grayed in versus two circles that are more line work. The ones that are the line work, those reflect further out from the building, a sort of adaptation recreation of sort of the historic light fixtures that used to be on the stoop. But the more inboard ones, those are stone columns. They hold up the entablature above, and that is, in one way, it is the barrier, meaning from our landing, we could not proceed towards the center, towards the door of the building. But the more significant issue is the height change. And so if you take what is the landing of the door coming into the building, and if you brought that line horizontally leftward, the actual floor level of the building is a little higher than the glass panel in the new door that we're putting in the center entrance. And so there isn't enough space to add more steps to the stoop to get up to the proper level to be able to come into the building on grade. I certainly agree it would be lovely as an experience if everyone could come in through the same door, but the challenge is the way this building was built, that entrance is at a lower elevation than the main floor, that they had two more steps. So I think a little over a foot more height change to fix or remediate once you get inside. So by us coming in one bay uphill, it allows us to come in at a higher height and then get into the lobby. So as you enter the building, everyone's at the same level.
Okay, and then in terms of, you spoke about the rated windows, what is, if you could just tell us, and I think that was on pages 21 and 22.
So like I mentioned, the west facade is right on our property line. So these are known as lot line windows, and based on the construction of your building, you determine the rating that is required by the any openings in order to maintain an opening. So based on the construction of our building, we need 1 hour rated windows.
Okay, that's what, okay, so they're 1 hour
Yep.
rated, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I would note one thing about those windows. Historically, those were operable windows. They occur on the first floor up through the 6th floor, and they're in plan all the way up towards the street of that front bar, and then all the way in the back, like you see in the elevations. A change that we will be making is that while they will visually look like double hung windows, these windows will not be operable. Those will be fixed, and the glazing actually is even much thicker than a normal double glazed window because that is fiberglass. It's actually not regular glass. So those will allow light to pass through, but they do not allow air. They cannot be opened by the students. It's physically not built as an operable
Are you
unit.
saying only the windows that you have highlighted in the yellow will not be operable, and then also on the
No.
front of the facade?
Sorry, the yellow is a different piece. I can explain that in just one second, but the full column of 6 windows that you see there, vertical column, and then all the way on the back of the building, that similar stack of 6. None of those will be able to open and close.
Oh, wow.
The purpose of the yellow is that we were just highlighting that Landmarks takes a special interest in windows that have a specialty glazing pattern like the diamond pattern. And so their jurisdiction or their area of the public hearing where they wanted more information was on those specifically 3 diamond pattern windows here with the yellow highlight, and then on the front street elevation
What
similarly.
about those internal windows?
They are focused on the rest. The internal windows are not, well, they're not part of landmark discussion because they are not visible in the recessed ones, and none of those historically had the specialty patterns. They were all 1/1s.
So I think you said the rear yard, but you're talking really about the side area way windows cannot open.
I'm not talking about either of those. I'm talking about the lot line. So where Emma's circling, those 2 locations, those are the ones that are literally right on the property line. And those are ones that historically were operable windows, but in the new version, they will no longer be operable. They will be
Well,
fixed.
can you help us understand why you're making those windows fixed?
Because to maintain the fire rating, it is not viable to have them still operate because the moment a student opens the window, it would clearly no longer be a rated window. So, at the time the building was built, people were less concerned about such things. So those were just unrated, operable wood windows. But as a new
But they
construction,
will have some windows in every single unit that are
Correct.
operable, I guess is what I'm
Correct.
getting at.
Correct.
Okay.
All units will have operable windows as part of light and air mandates by the city.
I noticed that none of those, I don't see any closets inside the floor plans. I know that's not
Correct.
our issue, but I just make comment that I don't see any closets.
Correct. Columbia's standard furniture layouts include a furniture wardrobe. They do not typically provide built-in closets.
So is this layout going to remain the same even after the existing students move? As they've explained that this is sort of like a holding type. dorm while other dorms on campus are being renovated. And then after all the renovations have occurred, is this floor plan going to remain the same or is it going to change?
I would defer to Columbia to speak to a
We
future
don't have-
use, which might be many years forward
I
from now.
suspect correct. I suspect it would be many years and we don't have plans to change these plans.
Is the layout that we see right now, is this the same layout that it currently is? I know that the building's totally dilapidated, but are you changing the existing plan or, the existing layout?
Yeah, there is really nothing left of the existing layout. The interior has been pretty much completely gutted.
Oh, see, that's important to know. Okay, we didn't know that.
Yeah. And I think Emma could speak to, in order to, well, actually, that might not be entirely correct. Emma, they're probably bearing walls that are still.
Yeah, I can pipe in here. Yeah, they're part of the structure of the building are these bearing walls that run east to west, as well as the exterior masonry walls. Those will remain and are there currently, but like Denise said, otherwise there really aren't any interior partitions. The bathrooms have already been removed. There aren't floors, no walls, things like that. So this is it's a new layout in order.
Right, and the removals were not by Columbia. It was a prior owner who had presumably started some work in the building and had been removing all the partitions. So at the time of Columbia's transfer or purchase of the building, they were gone. There's like a tiny corner of the first floor that had a few remaining partitions, but even those few pieces that remain are heavily water damaged and obviously will be removed, and they are not.
So so this presentation that we are viewing today, is this the same presentation and building plans, architectural plans that are going to be submitted to Landmarks Preservation Commission as well as the Department of Buildings?
So what you're getting is actually more than what will be presented at the LPC hearing. For the DOB, there's a full set of drawings, including, all of the trades, mechanical, electrical, everything. So for DOB, there's additional information that will be provided, but for Landmarks, for the public hearing, it'll be those three main topics that I talked about. It'll be the presentation that you saw today about those three topics.
Okay, but the floor plans, this is, I understand the mechanicals and electrical, et cetera. They will reflect the floor plans that we're seeing right now.
Correct. Yes, this is the intent.
And I have, and then just in terms of the time frame, we always ask about time frame because we need to know what you require from the community board. So I think you mentioned, and if you could just repeat again, your hearing is, did you say May 23rd or May 25th?
May 23rd.
Okay. And then your in terms of time frame, then after that, you'll have the hearing and then you'll immediately submit to DOB. And I just want to make sure that, another concern, I guess, that I have is the fact that this was once or currently considered an SRO. So has Columbia received a certificate of no harassment to convert this SRO into a dormitory?
Yes.
Or is that required?
They have received that.
Okay, who is they?
Columbia.
Okay. And when, if you can just so that everyone is clear, when was it received?
I would have to let them speak to that.
Yeah, that was received by real estate. We can get back to you on that, just so we have the correct information.
Well, I guess was it received within the last year since you purchased it, or was it received?
Yes.
Was it received before you purchased it or after you purchased it?
I'm not 100% on that. I'm not with the real estate department, but we can get that answer to you right away tomorrow.
Okay, great. All right. Now, are there any other questions? Again, committee members, please check the chat for me.
Yep, I have a question. That's why I have my hand raised.
Oh, I didn't see. Okay, that's why you ought to help me because I can't see. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Liz, with your question. And then I see Tiffany. Now I see Tiffany's hand too. Go ahead.
So there is a question in the chat about the rear yard areas and use. So the question is that the adjacent foliage area of the alumni building on 113th Street does belong to Columbia. Could it ever be used by the residents of 611? There are concerns about noise from recreational use by undergraduates. And it sounds like, is there a way that two buildings will be able to connect and hang out outside in that green space? I assume it's the tree that we see directly behind the building.
Yeah, I assume that's the area they're talking about. I'll just say one thing and then Carrie, you can probably add. They're at different elevation heights. So our rear yard is much lower. So physically you can't walk between the two. So at least, and then Carrie, if you have something to add.
No, I was just going to comment, there's 3 brownstones there. I think it's 614, 616, and 618. 616 and 618 are not owned by the university. I think a Mr. Ettinger is the owner of those two, and he rents out apartments there.
This is the alumni building, correct?
That's the alumni building, correct?
Oh, that's helpful.
Is there, will there be a path in the rear areas to connect those two buildings?
No.
No.
Thank you.
You mentioned 2 of the brownstones are not owned by Columbia. Is one owned by Columbia?
Yes, I believe.
Can you point out the one with the cursor, which one is?
Carrie, can you
Could you
point me?
please? Of the 3, it's the
Mhm.
most east of
This
the
one.
3. You can kind of see the difference.
Okay.
It's a different color.
Okay, that's helpful. Were there any other questions in the chat? Does the person who asked that question, if you're still on, does that answer your question?
She's not able to engage in that way. She says, yes, it's been answered.
Okay, great.
Tiffany has her hand raised, Heather.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
2 quick questions. How are you able to obtain a certificate of non-harassment if there are no residents? I thought residents in the building would have to agree with that. That was the first. And the second question, if there was any consideration that was given to making the new handrail match the existing handrail, because it's higher up, so it naturally stands out more.
I would have to let Columbia answer the first one. I can address the second one. Often when we do an addition to a building, the appropriate thing is to differentiate it a little bit, not to reproduce historic fabric and try and fake that it was always that way. So while we take cues from the historic fabric, we want to sort of do a quiet intervention, something that might not be as disruptive to the facade.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think to the first part of your question, we'll have to confer with our real estate group who was responsible for purchasing the property, and we'll answer both of those questions relative to the certificate of no harassment, the timeline and how that was attained.
Are there any other questions? I'm looking. Let's see. Honorable Caldwell, Honorable Ramirez, Hugo, if you could please make any comments. Dan, if you have any comments.
I have no comments.
All right. Are there any members left from the community who wish to comment? Who've not had an opportunity to speak? Any other comments? Okay, then I'll go ahead and again, thank you so much, Columbia. Columbia is also our neighbor, and as well as all of the community members who've participated in our community board meeting this evening. We thank you all. We appreciate you all. So I'm just going to do one more quick look now that I can see the full screen. All right. And again, let's see. If there are no other questions, then I'll just make sure that we still have a quorum here. If all the committee members are still here. I see. All right. I have not heard from Miss Ramirez. He's still here?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. I see you now. All right. And Hugo, are there any alums at Columbia who'd like to speak? Or any other community board members who are on who'd like to say anything? Okay. All right. So then we'll go ahead and again, Columbia, I guess that you're asking us for, and that's the other thing that I just try to make sure that we're clear on. You're asking us for a letter of support for the hearing, for the LPC hearing. Okay. Right. All right, then we'll go ahead then, and we'll take the vote then for the hearing. All right, I'm going to start with Liz.
I vote yes.
Okay. Hugo?
Sorry, did Liz voted yes or no?
Liz voted yes. Go ahead. Dan, do you want to vote?
I vote yes.
Okay. Hugo?
Yep, I vote in favor, yes.
Okay. Honorable Caldwell? Is Honorable Caldwell still on? I see that she's in.
I'm so sorry. I'm on several screens. I vote yes.
Okay.
With a caveat to the notes that I'm going to forward to you.
Well, if you have any concerns or any, then you should speak them now so that Columbia can address them out of fairness to Columbia.
I see. Okay, well, my vote is still, my vote stays as a yes.
Okay, do you have any concerns that you'd like to voice?
With regard to their building, this continuance of building of what they've already started?
Mm-hmm.
No, I have no concerns of that. That's already begun. No concerns.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Did I miss anyone? I got Hugo. Oh, Carolina, did I get you?
Oh, I'm abstaining.
Okay. I'm sorry, Hugo, did you vote? Hugo,
Yes,
you
Hugo
said
voted
you-
yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I vote yes. Okay, so the motion passes. So we will work on getting you a letter of support for the renovations that have been proposed. And we'll also include any of the community concerns that have been voiced. This letter does go to all of our elected officials and any, representative agencies. So it's important that the community stay informed in reference to the project and that we try to mitigate any ongoing concerns, okay, that we have with the community. And I see that Columbia is taking necessary steps to do that, and we really appreciate that. All right. Are there any other, I'll put back up the agenda but I'm not going to delay the meeting much further. I think most things we've already is Miss Chin, is Ewan still on or no? Okay. Were there any other, we talked about Donalyn and I don't believe anyone else is on. Are there any other old business updates that anyone wants to bring to our attention?
Is Shannon still here?
I didn't see him on.
He was on at the beginning of the call.
Yes.
And he put a note in the chat. This is Stephanie from Riverside.
Good.
Just to let you know about the lighting was fixed. So that's all good. And there have been new trash receptacles been added by Parks and DOT, which is great. But
Great.
Shannon is still working with Shauna Bray's office for more trash cans.
Great, great, great.
Great. All right. And the West Harlem Historic District and Conference is taking place in June. Liz, do you happen to have that date? Is it the 10th?
I don't have it. I'm sorry.
Okay. We'll get you the exact date for that at our June meeting, but just please keep that in mind. We are doing a West Harlem Historic District Conference. And with that, are there any other updates? I will stop sharing. And then we can go ahead if
I make
anyone.
a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Am I too fast with that? I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Who seconded it?
Carolina.
Oh, Carolina. Okay.
Thank you, Carolina.
Okay.
To all the mothers, I wish to say Happy Mother's Day. I know that we will not meet again, but I wish for all the mothers, Happy Mother's Day. That's it.
Thanks to you as well.
So then we will adjourn the meeting then at 9:11. Thank everyone for your participation and for your questions and for your comments. And, we'll continue to work together to improve our community.
Yes.
So thank you so very much.
And thank you for the work you've been doing, Heather. Thank you, Heather. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will go ahead and, let's see, how do I?